about how do we bridge the different economies, the ones that are rooted in nature and natural capital, and the world of consumerism, where many of us reside. So I always like to start out with asking, where is Suriname? And when I come to places, I usually ask people, never expecting them to know. But today I actually met some people who know about Suriname. So this crowd already has like one up on a lot of other places that I get to. So thank you for that. So I live right here, together with another 200,000 people. There's only 500,000 of us, if you can believe it. And we've got all this forest, 15 million hectares of forest. It makes us the most forested country in the world, per capita. Carbon negative, a biodiversity hotspot. And I always like to say, when people visit, or when I try to get people to visit, I say, if you have the privilege of flying over our canopy, your eyes will never have seen so much green, I promise. Now, a lot of folks are talking about how do we get carbon zero? How do we get to net zero? Well, guess what? Suriname's already carbon negative. We are one of only 2 carbon negative countries in the world. And that's because our forests are huge compared to our society, right? And they're absorbing 21 million tons of carbon net every single year. Think about that. Forests absorbing more carbon than they're emitting. Ours are doing that right now. And my challenge is, how do we maintain that? How do we make sure that not only do we maintain the carbon, but how do we maintain the biodiversity? Because we're a biodiversity hotspot. And remember, without animals, there is no forest. If we don't have the biodiversity in place, be it insects, be it the monkeys, be it the jaguars, to really regenerate this forest and repopulate it, the forests will die in time. So it's not just carbon. Trees are the homes to biodiversity, and we need to cherish that, and we need to maintain that. So thinking about all of that, the question is, what makes Suriname so special? Because I believe that we are, as a country, special. Well, starting out with the 93% forest cover, which is roughly 30 hectares of forest per person. Our rivers house 10% of the world's fresh water in rivers, if you can believe that. Some of the greatest biodiversity, and like I just said, 21 million tons net sequestered every single year. I have the privilege of leading an organization in Suriname called Conservation International Suriname, aptly named, of course. And it is our vision that Suriname remain the greenest country in the world forever, with a prosperous and happy population. And we do that by executing on our mission to preserve Suriname's rich biodiversity and ecosystems for the well-being of current and future generations. Focus on future, right? Because this generation, it is what it is, so to speak. We'll have the forests as they are, we'll have the oceans as they are, unless we really rapidly destroy them, which is something of a possibility in some places around the world. But really, it's about the next generations. It's about what kind of quality of life will we be able to offer them, what kind of safety, what kind of security. So Suriname, for all its great forests and great properties, we have some serious issues. Illegal and uncontrolled small-scale gold mining, under-controlled and uncontrolled logging, and illegal wildlife trafficking. A lot of these have come about due to socioeconomic challenges and disparity in wealth distribution. So those are some of the things that really have been leading to some of the forest degradation and destruction. So this is a time lapse of just a very small section of the country. Now, try to keep your eyes on it. The green, of course, is the forest, and the red is the deforestation. And we'll show you what's happened over a couple of years' time. So you see how that red is spreading, right? So that is what we're fighting at CI Suriname. We're trying to prevent this from getting out of hand, so to speak. Some would say it already is, but luckily right now, we're only losing 10,000 hectares a year. Now, if you ask me, it's still too much, but more importantly, we're also having a lot of other negative impacts from degradation taking place. So what are we going to do about that? Well, it's our vision to unlock the bioeconomy's power, using well what we don't or currently undervalue. And the way that we think to do that, among others, is to find ways to take these 8 different products that are all non-timber forest products. They're oils, they're called carrier oils, and they're incredibly valuable. They're incredibly valuable to the cosmetics industry, for other uses, for general health. And some of them are Maripa, Awara, Amana, Kumbu. And all of them together, a study we did back in 2017 together with UC Berkeley, tells us that if we're smart about this, we could unlock another $2.5 billion to our GDP, add 40,000 new jobs, and secure over $210 million on the village level. But to do that, we need to be smart about it. We need to be different. We need to value these products in these communities that house these incredibly important products. So what we've been doing, and I have a couple of maps up here, just for fun. I'll tell you a little bit what that's about. So we've been working in this village over here, among others, called Alalapadu. And in Alalapadu, we signed a conservation agreement. Back in 2017, that was the first one. We said, okay, we're going to help you build a venture around Brazil nut oil and Brazil nut roasted products. And in exchange, you protect 70,000 hectares. They're like, all right, good deal. So we got started. Now that was a little bit smaller than Bogota, right? Or maybe half. Then, after it went well and the village reached full employment, we said, hey, could we go for a little bit more? So now we're protecting 235,000 hectares with that one venture. Think about it. One venture is protecting 235,000 hectares, 1.3 times the size of Bogota, okay? How do we do that? Well, first off, there's a lot of preparation that goes into this stuff, right? We have to do our consultations to respect the human rights of the communities, going through free, prior, informed consent. Then it's researching the trees, coming up with the right ecological protocols to maintain their productivity. Then we sign the agreement. We market the product. We get it into stores. We get it exported. And that's finally what it comes down to. To really help build this business, we have to build these businesses if we want the forest to survive. And when looking at Alapado, I'm pretty happy with some of the results. Wildlife trafficking has stopped. Gold mining has been prevented. Community income increased by 150%. And employment rate up by 87%. Okay? And this is that tree, the Bertholletia excelsia. Wonderful, an Amazon giant. It is one of the super trees. It is one of the climate protectors. Not only does it store a vast amount of carbon, but it's also an important player in the evapotranspiration cycle. Without this tree, there is no water in Argentina, so to speak. Slight exaggeration maybe, but believe me, these trees have an incredibly important function in the entire ecosystem. And what we've been able to do is looking at that specific area, the 235,000 hectares, we can see that that area has sequestered net annually 191,000 tons of CO2e. That's equivalent to taking 55,000 cars off the road. Again, this is one small venture. We can do more. Looking at it historically, over the 5-year period, that's about 1 million tons of CO2e that we've been able to absorb and stick in the ground, equal to 272,000 cars, okay? Also translates to about 0.85. You can round up to 1 ton of CO2e per year. But that's what this drives. That's what drives this enterprise. So what have we seen? Great environmental impact, absorption of 191,000 tons a year, employment rate up in terms of livelihood, and economic value. But what we noticed is that we've been having to work really hard to break down a couple of barriers. Access to capital for these communities, access to technology, and access to markets. When you try to connect these incredibly important bioeconomy ventures to the larger markets, they're often not interested. Yeah, if you can't do 50 tons a year of oil, then, you know, we can't work with you. Yeah, but they can only make 1,000. Well, tough luck. Or you've got other elements where you've got things going on where markets collapse and all of a sudden you're losing your ecosystem service abilities. So these are barriers that we need to systematically solve for. And for that, we're working with one of our partners called Greenverse. They're the first 4 impact venture studio for forest and climate. And really what they're doing is coming up with venture models to make sure that these types of services can be maintained and these types of enterprises can thrive. So we've come up with one model here. Now this is very early days, but the idea is that we would have the Brazil nut oil that's produced by the communities, harvested and produced by them, would come to something of a franchising system, which would then provide market access, access to capital, and access to technology to improve the product offering and also connect them to the markets. So this is a bit much to kind of go into detail. I'll happily talk to you if you're here and if you're interested. But what we're doing is looking for a franchise model to be able to scale at size. And we believe we can put 200 new bio franchises on the ground over the next 5 years. Each franchise will protect 200,000 hectares for a total protection of 4 million hectares, safeguarding the sequestration function of 4.8 million tons per year, equivalent of keeping 1.4 million cars off the road every single year. But we've got the challenges I mentioned: lack of access to capital, lack of access to technology, lack of access to markets. And my challenge here to each of you is, if and how can Web3 try to take down some of those barriers, be it using blockchain, tokenization, smart contracts? If we introduce traceability, transparency, using AI to identify the types of trees, using different community models to externally fund this, gain partners, and of course look at distributed ownership. But maybe one of the most important things, just to raise awareness about what we're working on and about Suriname. So we've got a couple of partners: Rainforest, FutureQuest, Bioverse, Polygon, and Carbon-Base, each taking up a specific space and bringing specific capabilities. But we need much more to make this work. Many more partners are needed. So connect with us. Connect with us to help us understand how to meet all of you. How can these technologies support what we need to do? And maybe also help us get some funding. Because if we're going to build 200 of these ventures, we're going to need money, lots of it. So thank you very much. And again, it's an invitation to join our mission and just have a conversation.